Okay, picture this. You want to start a blog. Okay. But then you're told in order to have a successful blog, you need to open a business. Okay. And then you're told the only way to have a successful business is to start a YouTube channel. Okay. And then instead of just having a blog and a business and a YouTube channel, you also get told that you need to start an online course. An online course about what? It doesn't matter. That's not the point. What's up, friend? Welcome back to my channel. Hi if you're new here, hi if you're not. I hope you enjoyed my little live reenactment of today's interview. It's a tale as old as time, truly. Someone being sold on a product, a service, an offer, and then being delivered something they never really asked for in the end. This was a fun chat, and I will let today's guest speak for herself. If you're interested in being interviewed here on the channel, the form in which you can apply to do so is linked in the description down below. I want to give a quick shout out to my channel VIPs, as well as those rich folks in the billionaire tier. Thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. Now let's go ahead and jump right in.
So I guess it really started when I was in my PhD program. So I'm currently a professor. And so before all of that, I was in a PhD program, and as one would assume, it was hard. So it was a little harder, I thought, at the time for me, though, because a lot of the people in my cohort was one of the biggest ones that they've had. So it was 10 people when they're used to like 5. So, but I would say like a big portion of the people in the program had some family member or like person involved in their life who had gotten a PhD and was in academia. And I was one of the few people who not at all. So no one in my family has gotten a PhD except for me. And then even most of my family has no higher education. So I didn't really know what academia was like. And so it kind of felt like academia wasn't maybe meant for me. And so basically, while other people had applied because they knew that's what they wanted, I kind of did it on a whim. So because my GRE scores were still valid, and so I basically was like, okay, well, I can do that. I'll just apply, see what happens. I ended up getting into a couple programs, but the one I ended up going to was the one where I got my master's degree. Like I said, I felt like I wasn't really the target demographic for the PhD program, and basically I had 2 other people in the program and me who were secretly working jobs on the side, because being a PhD student is very expensive, and I went to school in DC, so it wasn't a public university, it was a private university, so it was just expensive. And I did get a pretty good scholarship. It's just I still had to live. So I had a secret job on the side, basically. And so
So are you not allowed to work?
So in our program, it was highly discouraged. I later
see.
looked at the policies, and there was nothing in the policy that said you couldn't. It's just the director at the time didn't want us to. And since then, I think a lot of people have been like, okay, absolutely not, and ended up working anyway. So we were like secretly working, and I think all 3 of us were neurodivergent in some way. I know that the other 2 had been diagnosed with ADHD, and I had not, but I was pretty sure there was something going on there. And so I guess spoiler alert, I was going to go in order, but spoiler alert, I ended up getting diagnosed with ADHD later after being misdiagnosed with bipolar 2. And now I'm being evaluated for autism. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, so while I was in the program, I wanted to document my experience because I felt kind of, I don't know, different, because most of them were people from an academic background. Most of them were not Black. So it was me and one other Black person. There was one Black professor. Like it wasn't very representative of my personal experience. And so I wanted to document my experience for people who had a similar experience. So what I ended up doing was I started wanting to blog, and I figured, oh yeah, I can just blog. It's no big deal, just blog. And I didn't 100% feel confident in starting the blog. So I ended up watching a bunch of YouTube videos on how to start a blog. And most of those were straightforward and good. And I found one channel in particular I really liked, where she was explaining all these tips and tricks for starting a blog. And so I figured, oh, she's got a great YouTube channel about blogging. I bet you her course is great. So I ended up buying her course. And one of the first lessons of the course was basically saying you shouldn't start a blog unless you have a business. And I was like, oh no, I don't have a business. And being super naive, because I will admit, I'm just a very naive person. I tend to believe people the first thing they say. I'm a lot better now because I've been screwed over several times, but I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to start a business. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do an Etsy shop. And like basically as soon as I got started with that, all hell broke loose. And so COVID happened. And then months after we all went on shutdown, my dad passed, not of COVID, but from a heart attack. And so that was rough. And I probably should have taken the whole like year, maybe not whole year, but at least the semester off. I ended up only taking a few weeks off because I really wanted to get out of there. And also I felt like if I were to take time to process my feelings, I would not ever go back to the program. And so I just wanted to get it done, which is probably true. I probably wouldn't have gone back, but it's for the best that I did because I have a good job now. But basically after all that, I was kind of not in a great place. I had some issues with like anxiety and depression. I mean, understandably, but it got to the point where one of the professors was concerned for me. I don't know if she was actually concerned or if she just didn't want to deal with me at the time. I'm not sure because I was working for her. And so she reported me to academic affairs, mental health office. And so basically they contacted me and said, your professor's concerned about your well-being or whatever. You have two options. It's either, I think one of them was to like sign a thing saying, no, I'm fine, leave me alone. And then if anything happens, I'm responsible. And then the other one was to go see a counselor. So I ended up seeing one of the counselors. And I guess I said something concerning to her. I'm not sure what it was, but she was concerned. So then she sent me to the psychiatrist on campus. And the psychiatrist on campus diagnosed me with bipolar 2. Again, spoiler alert, I don't have bipolar 2. So that was just a misdiagnosis. And so I was basically on anti-bipolar 2 medication for, not anti-bipolar 2, I think it was just, I don't know what it's actually called. It was like antipsychotics, I don't know, for about a year long, and I should not have been, essentially. So then after that, I just, things were a mess. So I was like, okay, I'm going to dig deep in. I'm going to start this Etsy shop because I don't think I want to go into academia because everything's too hard. I'm just going to become a business lady.
So had you finished your PhD at this point?
No, so it's still in the program.
So you're in school, you're thinking about starting this blog, and you're also trying to start an Etsy shop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I basically wasn't telling anyone what I was doing because I think part of it was like subconsciously, I was like, no, they're going to tell you this is dumb. And I didn't want people to tell me it was dumb, even though in retrospect, it would have been great for somebody to be like, maybe hold your horses. You're not in a good place right now. But I mean, I did what I did. So then I went down another rabbit hole of trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this Etsy shop and blog successful? And I ended up finding in another from another blog person that the only way to have a successful blog is to have a YouTube channel. And I was like, okay, I have no idea how to do YouTube. I don't even know if I want to do YouTube. I don't think that I have the personality for it. So I was like, okay, how do I figure that out? So I found some on YouTube and I watched like a bunch of her YouTube videos about YouTube. And I thought, oh, this is great. So I'm going to follow this advice. See, she has a free webinar at the time. Again, very naive. I didn't know that all the live webinars are not live and that they're pre-recorded. So I just thought,
and her content is good. Yeah. I think I told you this in email, but I used to watch a lot of her videos when I was in the infancy of my business because she does share like some valuable information. Mind you, it all feeds into her course. But if you're a beginner, you would watch that and be like, wow, this is actually really good, helpful information.
Right. I completely agree. I think that the YouTube content, fantastic. The problem was when I got into the webinar, it was talking about YouTube, which is what I wanted, but then it started talking about how to create a program from your YouTube channel. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to keep watching this webinar. And so by the end, I was hooked because I, again, didn't know that live webinars weren't live. So I saw all these questions coming in, and they were great questions. She had great answers for these already pre-programmed questions. And so I basically was hooked. So I did the application. And so when I did the application, it wasn't very detailed, but some of the questions made me go, okay, maybe this is too advanced for me, because they were asking about your business and your clients and how much you make, etc. And basically the answer for me was nothing. I've had no clients. I made no money. Like, that's no. And so
I don't even have a business, right?
Exactly.
Like, you didn't have a
Exactly.
business yet.
I didn't even have a business. So I had an Etsy shop, and I had sold like 10 things. So I didn't have a business. And so when I got on, basically when I applied, I assumed I was going to get rejected, because anyone who is doing their due diligence should have rejected me.
Yeah,
and
you should have been rejected.
I should have absolutely been rejected. And so when I got an email saying they wanted to do a discovery call, I was a little surprised, but I was like, okay, cool, I'll hear them out. And so first of all, in the webinar, which I mean, honestly, I just took their word for it. In the webinar, they had mentioned that the cost was a 4-figure investment. And to me, as a naive person who knows nothing about any of this, I thought, oh yes, definitely 4 figures, like $1,000. I'm sure that it'll be less for me because I don't know what I'm doing, and it's coaching. So it's going to be probably catered to what your experience is. And so when I get on the call, I was like, okay, I'm going to be honest. I have no business experience whatsoever. I've never done YouTube before. I don't have a program. Like, none of the things are applicable to me. And she said, well, it's okay, because, and she was describing how in my application, I had mentioned I'm a PhD student, and that my area of expertise was basically social equity, and now it's data storytelling and information literacy. So I'm glad it wasn't at the time, because I'm sure that would have like made them want me even more. But yeah, so she was basically saying,
I just have a question.
Sure.
Was the sales call with her, or was it with someone on her team?
It was someone on her team. And that was also the bigger shock, because I had no idea she had a team. I thought it was like she was going to coach you one-on-one. And so I was like, okay, I don't know this lady, but maybe this is just the sales lady. I'm sure she like does all the coaching one-on-one and da-da-da-da. No, not at all. And so it was with some lady I'd never heard of before. I don't think I ever saw her again either, but she was one of the coaches, because there was apparently a bunch of coaches, and I don't think I ever saw her ever again. But during the call, I was telling about my experience of being a PhD student, how I thought I wanted to do program evaluation, because I have a lot of experience with that, and da-da-da-da-da, quantitative, blah, blah, blah. And so then when I got to the end of the call, I just felt like, no, like, they don't want you because you have nothing. Like, you have nothing to give. This is not going to be a beneficial experience for them. Like, they should say no. And she said, I think you're a perfect fit. And I was like, okay, am I though? Because like, and so I was like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I tricked her. I don't know. And so I ended up asking finally about the price, and it was $5,000. And I was like, okay, but it's one-on-one coaching, so I'm sure it's fine, because $5,000. And apparently I had to tell them on the call, or else the price goes up. And so I was like, okay, so if I don't make a commitment right now, it goes up to, I think, $6,000 or something. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I have money saved in my savings account. I'm gonna do it. So then I ended up paying the $5,000, and that was dumb. Because when I finally got,
and you paid it on the call, right? Like,
yes,
you literally gave them your credit card.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I regret that, because once I got into the program, it was nothing of what I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was going to be, the majority was going to be YouTube and how to do YouTube and start a business with YouTube. No, it was mostly this thing I guess program she created called, I don't remember what it was called, like Rocket something. And it was basically a small portion of it was YouTube, because she had, I guess, refigured some of the stuff from her class into that program. Because what I thought I was signing up for, or what I had wanted to sign up for, was but they were no longer selling it at that point. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this has the and it's going to be even better. Little did I know that it was a small portion of the whole program. And so the majority of the program, the majority of the stuff I did within the program before I gave up. Okay, so you had to interview like your family and your friends and like do all this like introspective mental stuff and then figure out what you're going to have your program on. And I just assumed that everybody was going to do what their business is. But that's not how they taught it at all. They were just trying to get anyone to make a program on anything. So there was a dietitian there who, in my opinion, her program was going to be something dietitian related, but it wasn't. And so I was kind of confused on how, like, why, I don't know. It just felt like something was off. It didn't feel like it made sense to me.
What was the outcome of the program that you were told? Like, if it wasn't, I'm going to teach you how to build a YouTube channel, was it, I'm going to teach you how to build an online course? Like, what was the promised outcome?
So it was basically replicating what she did. So her program, she was teaching you how to do that, how to create her program. But that's not how it was advertised. And so that's why I was confused, because I didn't want to do what she's doing. I had no interest in having a program. That's not what I wanted. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I could do everything until the starting the program part, because I have no interest in that. I don't want to be her. I just want a YouTube channel so that my blog works. That's all I wanted, which is, in retrospect, like maybe I should have thought a couple steps ahead. But now that I know that I have ADHD and it was untreated at the time and I might have autism, which I'm being evaluated for, it's possible that I just didn't pick up on the red flags because I was just naive and impulsive, which it happens. So so basically I did that for a little while, but the part that really stopped me was I got through all the pre-work sort of stuff of figuring out what's your business going to be on, and got to the point where you're supposed to interview 50 people. And that was like an absurd number in my opinion, but I just figured, because she said, oh, it should only take you 2 weeks. I figured maybe it'd be easy to find people, because again, I had no experience in any of this. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's super easy to find 50 people to interview. I mean, in academia, it's not. It took me like 3 months to find 10 people to interview in academia. So like maybe it's different with businesses. I don't know. And so I tried doing it. Basically like nobody wanted to talk to me. I got 6 people total, and that was like months. And she was telling people 2 weeks. So on the Facebook group, most of the questions were about these, as she called them, ICAs. So most of them were about the ICAs, where people were saying, okay, I can't get people to get on the phone with me. Like nobody wants to do this ICA call with me. And they were making it sound like, okay, no, it's totally easy. Just go into Facebook groups and be of service and blah, blah, blah. And then they also gave us permission to ask other people in the group, which is how I got all my people, was people in that group. So basically it was like people in the group asking each other, if you're doing it correctly, they shouldn't be your market. So it didn't make sense to me why we were interviewing each other. And then what we ended up with was a bunch of people not getting enough people, so no one could move forward, because they had this rule, and I don't know if it was an official in the contract rule, but it was a rule that basically they wouldn't answer any questions past the ICAs if you haven't done all 50. And so if you had any questions about anything that wasn't related to interviewing these 50 people, they weren't going to answer it for you, which basically they weren't answering your questions anyway, because the calls turned out to be group calls, hundreds of people on these calls. It was basically like a live stream where you could ask questions, and then if they if they deemed your question worthy or something, I don't know, then they would answer your question. But other than that, it was basically like a live stream. And then the other frustrating part was it wasn't even really her for most of it. It was another coach. So the other coach was basically leading, and then she'd occasionally chime in. And I just found the whole thing icky. I didn't really know about scammers like that at the time, so I didn't know I got scammed. I just thought I was dumb, and like I just didn't understand what happened. And so I was really mad, because I was like, okay, I can't get these 50 calls. I don't want to interview the people in the group because they're not my target audience. Like I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and no one will talk to me. And so that ended up being an absolute nightmare. And then I ended up falling into a bunch of other scams after that. And I think it was all because I was trying to compensate for the $5,000 that I had lost on this program that was not useful whatsoever. And so eventually I ended up saying, okay, I'm not going to listen to her anymore, because the rule was you shouldn't be skipping ahead. You have to get through all of it before you go to the next section. So I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go to the next section. So then I got to the section of the course. And it was really good. And I was like, this should have been the whole course for a fraction of the price. So yeah, it was not good. And so I also ended up falling for more scams where I tried to overcompensate for the time wasted and the money spent by saying, okay, I'm going to get into coaching because I need to make this money back. And so I ended up working with another coach, which I know for a fact that she had been working with. She mentioned her regularly. And I even noticed that a lot of the stuff that she had recommended in the program before we got to the part where we weren't allowed to pass go, she was doing a lot of that stuff as well. So I think that's how she ended up with a coaching program, was by going through coaching program. So yeah, so it didn't work for her either. So basically I think that the major thing that I got away from all of this was I hate this. And that's one of the reasons why I loved your YouTube channel, was because I guess I didn't realize how deep I was in I guess what is that word I'm looking for? In the brainwashedness, I guess, of business coaching, until, because I think I'd mentioned in my email how I was following your content, and then you had mentioned something about, I think it was or something, and I was like, oh no, I like her. So I unsubscribed, because I was like, no, I guess we're not on the same wavelength. Like, and then it turned out, no, you were right about too. And so then I resubscribed, because I was like, oh no, I was wrong. And I think the number one thing that was like the huge red flag for me realizing that no, all of this business coaching, unless they're teaching you something specific and that they have expertise in, they're a business coach, and all they're doing is teaching you business coach stuff, that I shouldn't be listening to it, is when I went to the coach who I had mentioned, she's no longer a coach. I went to an event that she put on, and so basically it was a paid event, and everybody at the paid event was her former clients, and they were each other's clients. And I was like, oh my God, this is a pyramid scheme. Yeah. So then that's when I officially was like, okay, never mind. And I resubscribed, because I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I can actually go through and see all of the comments someone has left on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you emailed me and told me, like, I used to subscribe, but then I unsubscribed, I went back to see like what videos you had commented on. And that one video in particular, you were like basically suggesting that I just call everything a scam. Like, at what point is something just bad marketing?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had replied to you, but you never answered me back. And I was like, and at that time, I remember thinking like, oh, this person must be a fan of me, because...
Yeah. I wouldn't say I was a fan of her per se. It's just the person I was in the coaching program for was a fan. And so I just I guess grandma'd her, where I was just like, oh, well, my upline, that's her upline.
Well, yeah, because you're looking to that person for advice. So whatever they're telling you, like, oh, these are the books I like to read and the people I like to, content I like to consume, you're just going to take it at face value and be like, yeah, sounds good.
So I'm sorry for that.
Oh, no, it's fine. Honestly, it's actually quite interesting. I get messages often of people being like, yeah, similar situation of like, oh, I used to think you were just like a troll. And then I actually listened to, your video about Brooke Castillo, and then it opened my eyes. So it's like, sometimes you just have to like hear things over and over again so that you can make the connection on your own. To realize what's going on. Because even when I was in coaching, like, I would think all of these investments were great ideas and all of these people were giving me great advice, and my friends and my partner would be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I would just be like, well, you just don't understand. You don't get it.
Right. Like, you just don't know. You haven't met the right coach yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it was, and I thought it was funny too, when I went to that event, there was a woman who was, she was a Brooke Castillo person, and I guess she was one of her lineage, I guess, and she came to the event, and there was an awkward moment where my ex-coach, I guess, insulted Brooke Castillo and then apologized to the girl because she, and it was like, okay, this feels like, first of all, a pyramid scheme, but also an MLM. But it also felt like the sororities where like you have a big and a little, and then there's like drama. Yeah, it was dumb. And I think it was when I was at that event and I found out they were each other's customers. I was like, oh my God, do they have customers outside of each other? I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting if you start to kind of peel back the layers of the web of like this person has worked with this person, but then this person and this person were in the program, but now this person's under that person. And it's just like, if you're all just constantly cycling your money through each other, where is the actual value being built and like where is the money going and coming from? Like
Right.
it just truly it doesn't make any sense.
Right. It's like you're just passing each other money back and forth. Like so this is something I had to basically confess to my husband. So I had to I sat down and I was like, I need to talk to you. And we had like a very serious moment. And I told him everything that happened. And he was like very nice about it. And for some reason, I thought he was going to yell at me and be like, that is so stupid. You are so stupid. But he was so nice about it. And he was like, oh, no, it's okay. We'll get through it. And he understood why it happened. And since then, I've had to like stop my own family from like getting into scams. So like my sister will be like, oh, I found this coach. Well, can you look at this page and tell me? And I'm like, absolutely not. Nope. Don't do it. Nope. And then I would break down why it was a no. And I was like, no. Look at the sales page. Look what they're saying here.
I think when you're in it, you obviously don't see it. And I have a similar origin story to you where I started with like a blog and a podcast. And then these people were telling me I could monetize. And next thing you know, I'm like 12 coaches deep in a Facebook group. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now right. I'm like, everyone I look at, everyone's marketing, I'm like picking it apart. Oh, this is good. This is bad. Like it's so different once your eyes are open to it, I think.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I hate to admit it, but I was in this up until I want to say maybe September, October. I don't know. Like somewhere in there, like way 2008, where I knew about scams. I knew about MLMs. I knew like all of this. And it took all the way into like how many years of me knowing all this sort of stuff to finally click where I was like, oh no, all of it is a problem. Because the coach I had, she had an area of expertise. She was very good at that, but she stopped doing that in order to start coaching people on how to start businesses. And so thankfully she's gone back to the other business model and what she's actually good at. But
it can be really frustrating to witness, and especially when it's like people you know or people you care about, and they're like, I even get messages to this day of people being like, well, I'm thinking of starting a coaching business, and I'm like, don't do it, run away.
I think also my main problem with the idea of coaching is I think that there's certain types of coaching that make sense to me, but I feel like for the most part that type of model makes sense with like therapists and dietitians and like people who are licensed to XYZ and they're helping you with something they can't actively do for you. But I think that a lot of the coaches these days are coaching people, well, first of all, coaching people how to do exactly what they do, which is pretty much just creating a downline. And so that's a problem. But I think that a lot of them are coaching on things that you can easily Google. And I think it's because they don't know what else to do versus like if they were consulting or if they were selling a product, then I could see a lot of my issues with coaching not existing, but they don't do that. Instead, it's like, oh, I'm going to charge you $5,000 for this coaching program when the only useful part of it was the course on how to do YouTube that probably should have been less than $500, like that sort of thing.
And I think when you don't know what you're doing, you want someone to just give you the like quick solution. So if someone tells you they can do that for $5,000, you're like, take my money and just solve all my problems.
Exactly. And that's not at all what it was. And if it was one-on-one coaching, maybe it would have felt less scammy. But since then, I've seen other like actual professionals at what they do and how much they charge. And it's usually like 100 to 200 for like a session with an actual licensed professional. And the fact that there are people selling their non-professional services that are super basic that I could get on YouTube for free for $5,000. I don't know. That just seems excessive to me.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Why Don't You Say Something, the Instagram account, but
No, I've never heard of that.
she's a former coach that now makes like content that's like satire towards the coaching industry.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her like red flags is if someone is charging more than a surgeon, that's probably an indication that they're unqualified to be doing what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree, because I think once I actually started therapy, so I had that counselor I saw when I was in my PhD program, who was not good, by the way, and is the reason I got misdiagnosed. So, after that, I actually saw a therapist, and that's really when things started to sink in that this doesn't make sense. And I've been seeing the same dietitian for 3 years, and so the fact that that dietitian has given me more useful advice at a fraction of the price over the course of 3 years than that one course did, like, that's just crazy to me. So no.
It's absolutely wild the difference you see again, like once you're out of it and you access I'll just call it legitimate service for lack of a better term, that you then realize like, wow, I really got duped.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some people who will do things for you for less than that. So why would I do like, it was not even done with you. It was like a do it yourself. A do it yourself where they don't even allow for flexibility. And
At a price point where you could have just paid someone that
exactly.
$5,000 to
Yeah,
do it for
exactly.
you.
Exactly. I could have paid someone $5,000 to help me set up a YouTube channel. And then that would have been the end of that. And then it would have been a really great channel.
Hey, if someone wants to pay me $5,000, I'll set up
Right,
a YouTube
exactly.
channel. Like,
Oh my gosh,
oh my God. But again, like you don't know what you don't know. So
exactly. Yeah. I'm curious what proportion of people who get scammed into these sorts of things. Of course, like I think a lot of them are desperate, but I think some of them are in a bad place. But I'm curious how many of them are like actually like neurodivergent and maybe don't realize that people are using double talk and that they're saying one thing, they mean another thing, and we're taking them at face value because you said this, so I thought you meant that, just sort of thing. Yeah, so I am curious about that. I never looked into it, but now I'm curious.
yeah, that's actually something really interesting that hasn't come on my radar, but I would be curious to, like, obviously, I think that you would be more susceptible if you don't have that ability to discern when someone's being disingenuous. So it would be interesting to know.
Which, I mean, makes sense for me too, because I've always been, I don't want to say infantilized, but yes, infantilized for similar reasons where I am kind of not gullible, but like, unless I've been exposed to something previously, I kind of just take it at face value, and then I have to learn. Oh wait, no, this is a trap. I know, because last time it was a trap. So fool me once, fool me twice. Yeah,
Exactly. Live and learn, baby. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
That was a lot to unpack, especially the part where she talked about being on the sales call, feeling like she wasn't the right fit for the program, and then being sold to anyways. For me, at least, this brings up a lot of questions about ethics, desperation for a dollar, and how far some people will go just to be able to close a sale. Alas, I want to thank today's guest for coming on and sharing her story. If you're watching, I appreciate you. If you'd like to submit your own coaching experience, again, the form to do so is linked in the description down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and if you missed last week's interview, I will leave you on screen here with a woman who got caught up in a yoga teacher coaching scam. Take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!